A single apple falls through the still summer air, twisting slowly as it catches the golden English sunlight filtering through the leaves. It strikes the soft earth with a dull, final thud that seems to echo far beyond the quiet garden. Beneath the ancient tree, a solitary young man sits motionless, his long hair falling across a thin, intense face, his eyes burning with a fire no one else can see. He does not reach for the fruit. He does not eat it. Instead, that simple fall ignites a question that would forever alter the course of human knowledge. Why does it fall downward and never rise? Why not sideways into the wind? Why not upward toward the heavens? In that ordinary garden on a remote farm, cut off from the chaos of the world, Isaac Newton stood at the precipice of eternity. One unremarkable moment. One unparalleled mind. This is the epic tale of how a lonely, abandoned boy unlocked the hidden machinery of the universe itself. The year was 1642. England was a nation ripped apart by civil war. Families divided, villages burned, the very throne of the king trembling under the weight of rebellion. In the isolated hamlet of Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire, a modest stone farmhouse braced against the biting winter winds. On Christmas Day, amid the darkest, coldest night of the year, a fragile infant drew his first breath. Premature and perilously weak, the baby was so tiny that his mother, Hannah, whispered prayers over his cradle, doubting he would see morning. Local accounts claimed he could fit inside a quart mug, the kind used for a simple draught of ale or water. His father, a hard-working but unremarkable yeoman farmer also named Isaac, had died 3 months earlier, never knowing his son. From the very first moment, the boy entered a world marked by absence and uncertainty. Hannah Newton remarried when young Isaac was only 3. Her new husband, the older and wealthier Barnabas Smith, had no patience for the child of another man. In a decision that would scar Isaac for life, Hannah left her son behind. She walked away from the farmhouse to begin a new life in a nearby village, abandoning the boy to the care of his grandmother. Picture that lonely 3-year-old standing at the door, watching his mother disappear down the dusty path. No father, no mother, only the vast, empty English countryside and the heavy silence of a stone house that felt more like a prison than a home. Those formative years forged a soul of iron and shadow. Isaac grew up feeling unwanted, harboring a simmering anger that would never fully fade. He was different from the other village boys, profoundly so. While they ran wild through the fields, shouting and wrestling and throwing stones at birds, young Isaac retreated into his own world of creation and wonder. He constructed intricate miniature windmills whose sails turned faithfully in the breeze. He carved small wooden clocks that ticked away the hours with surprising accuracy. He even built a wheeled cart he could sit inside and propel across the yard with his hands, his serious eyes focused on every moving part. The world, to him, was not a playground of brute strength but a vast puzzle waiting to be solved through observation, measurement, and relentless thought. Yet beneath this quiet genius festered pain. Decades later, in a private confession of sins, Newton would record a dark childhood impulse, threatening to burn his mother and stepfather alive, along with their house. The boy who would master the cosmos was, at heart, a wounded soul battling inner demons. By age 12, Isaac was sent to the King's School in nearby Grantham. He lodged above an apothecary's shop, a place alive with the pungent aromas of dried herbs, exotic spices, mysterious powders, and bubbling concoctions in glass vials. For a mind starved for knowledge, it was paradise amid the ordinary. At school, however, he remained an outsider, quiet, thin, bookish, and often mocked by stronger, louder peers. One day a bully delivered a vicious kick to his stomach. The pain was sharp, but the humiliation ignited something primal. Newton challenged the larger boy to a fight. Smaller in stature but fueled by determination and intellect, he fought with ferocity and won. That victory was only the beginning. He vowed to triumph in the classroom as well, rising from near the bottom of his class to become the undisputed top student. His drive was not mere ambition. It was survival, a way to prove his worth in a world that had rejected him early. At 17, his mother summoned him home to manage the family farm. She needed him to tend sheep, sell wool, maintain fences, and handle the practical demands of rural life. Isaac tried valiantly, but his heart was never in the soil. Sheep wandered off while he stared at the clouds. Fences fell into disrepair. In one memorable incident, he led a horse home by its bridle only to realize later that the animal had slipped free and wandered away unnoticed, leaving him holding an empty rein. His mind drifted constantly to mathematics, motion, and the invisible forces shaping reality. His uncle and former schoolmaster recognized the truth. This boy was destined for greater things. They persuaded Hannah to relent. In 1661, at the age of 18, Isaac Newton passed through the grand gates of Trinity College, Cambridge, stepping into a new chapter filled with promise and peril. Cambridge in the 1660s was a bastion of tradition, where ancient Aristotelian philosophy still dominated lectures. Newton arrived not as a privileged young gentleman with fine clothes and servants, but as a subsizar, a poor student required to perform menial labor for his keep. He served meals to wealthier students, cleaned their rooms, and emptied their chamber pots. The sting of poverty and subservience could have broken a lesser spirit. For Newton, it was irrelevant. He had access to books, hundreds upon hundreds of them. He immersed himself in the works of Descartes, the astronomical observations of Kepler and Galileo, and the philosophical inquiries of the ancients. He read by candlelight deep into the night until his eyes burned and his body ached with exhaustion. He forgot meals. He neglected sleep. His roommate would later remark that Newton barely seemed present, so consumed was he by thought. While professors droned on with outdated doctrines, Newton pushed far beyond them, filling notebook after notebook with radical equations, sketches, and questions no one else dared ask. He was laying the invisible groundwork for a scientific revolution. But the world outside Cambridge was darkening. In 1665, the Great Plague descended like a biblical scourge. Cities and towns emptied as thousands perished in agony. Universities closed their doors. Students scattered to their homes. Newton returned to the quiet isolation of the Woolsthorpe farmhouse, 23 years old, alone with his thoughts, stripped of libraries, laboratories, and mentors. In that crucible of solitude, away from all external distractions, his genius would reach its explosive peak. Cut off from the world, Newton turned his formidable intellect inward. In the dim light of his bedroom, he procured a simple glass prism from a local fair. He sealed the room, allowing only a narrow beam of sunlight to pierce the darkness. As the white light passed through the prism, it fractured into a breathtaking spectrum, vivid reds, oranges, yellows, greens, blues, and violets painting the wall. Others had seen rainbows, of course, but assumed the glass added the colors. Newton demonstrated the opposite. White light itself contained all colors, and the prism merely separated them. It was a revelation about the very nature of light, the medium through which we perceive reality itself. The discovery sent ripples through his mind, challenging centuries of assumption. Yet this was only the beginning. Faced with problems of motion and change that existing mathematics could not solve, Newton invented an entirely new branch, calculus. This powerful tool allowed precise description of rates of change, curves, tangents, and accumulation. Questions about how a falling object accelerates, how a curve bends from one point to the next. At just 23 years old, in a plague-ravaged countryside, he forged a mathematical language that would underpin modern engineering, physics, economics, and even the calculations sending rockets into space. The quiet farmhouse had become the birthplace of concepts that would transform civilization. Then came the moment that legend would immortalize. Sitting in the garden one warm afternoon, Newton watched an apple detach from a branch and fall straight to the ground. In that instant, a profound connection sparked. The force pulling the apple earthward, could it extend beyond the tree? To the peak of the highest mountain? Across the vast emptiness to the moon itself? He realized, with breathtaking clarity, that the same invisible force governed both the falling fruit and the celestial dance of planets and moons. Gravity was universal. One single law binding the tiniest object on Earth to the grandest orbits in the heavens. He worked out the mathematics. Every mass attracts every other mass, with strength proportional to their sizes and diminishing with distance. It was elegant. It was revolutionary. It explained the tides, the paths of comets, the stability of the solar system. Before Newton, the heavens seemed mystical and separate. After him, the universe revealed itself as a unified, lawful system governed by discoverable rules. These years of astonishing creativity were shadowed by Newton's inner turmoil. The abandonment of his childhood left lasting scars. He trusted few, feared criticism, and hoarded his discoveries like precious secrets. The intensity that fueled his breakthroughs also made him solitary and difficult. He built walls around his heart as carefully as he once built toy windmills. When the plague subsided, Newton returned to Cambridge, but his greatest insights remained private, locked away in notebooks. He preferred the peace of anonymity to the glare of fame. Then, in 1684, the astronomer Edmund Halley arrived with a pressing question about planetary orbits. Newton answered without hesitation. He had solved it long ago. Halley, astonished, implored him to publish. The urging became a turning point. Over the next 2 intense years, Newton labored like a man possessed. He wrote, calculated, revised, often forgetting to eat or sleep, losing track of days and nights. The effort pushed him to his limits. In 1687, the Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica emerged, a work so profound it is still regarded as one of the greatest achievements in human thought. Within its pages, Newton presented his 3 laws of motion and the law of universal gravitation. He demonstrated why cannonballs follow predictable arcs, why tides ebb and flow, and how planets trace elliptical paths around the sun. The scientific community was stunned. Scholars across Europe hailed it as a masterpiece. One contemporary remarked that no mortal had come closer to the divine. The once-forgotten boy from Woolsthorpe had explained the fundamental mechanics of existence. Fame transformed his life, but never softened his character. Newton left Cambridge for London, appointed warden and later master of the Royal Mint. In this role, he pursued counterfeiters and clippers of coins with the same relentless precision he had applied to gravity, sending dozens to prison or the gallows. Elected president of the Royal Society, he held the position for over 20 years. Knighted by Queen Anne, he became Sir Isaac Newton, one of the most powerful and respected figures in Europe. Yet he remained deeply complex. Bitter disputes, especially with Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz over the invention of calculus, revealed his jealous protectiveness of priority. Historians now agree both men developed it independently, but Newton could not easily share credit. Beyond physics, he poured vast energy into alchemy, writing over 1 million words on experiments to transmute metals, and into meticulous biblical studies, attempting to decode prophecies and calculate the end times. He never married, formed few close friendships, and carried the loneliness of his youth into old age. On March 20th, 1727, at 84, Isaac Newton died in London. He was buried with great honor in Westminster Abbey, among kings and queens. The French writer Voltaire, who attended, noted that the man born in a humble farmhouse was interred like a king who had served his people well. Newton's legacy endures as the bedrock of modern science. His laws powered the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and humanity's reach into space. He demonstrated that the universe is not chaotic or capricious, but operates according to rational, mathematical principles that human reason can uncover. "If I have seen further," he wrote, "it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Yet countless scientists since have stood upon his shoulders, advancing knowledge step by step. His extraordinary journey, from a premature, abandoned child in a plague-shadowed farmhouse to the revealer of cosmic order, reminds us that profound adversity can birth profound insight. In moments of isolation and doubt, when the world feels overwhelming, we too can look inward, observe carefully, and ask the questions that matter. The invisible forces Newton uncovered still govern our reality. The same curiosity that drove him lives in every seeker today. What can we learn from Newton's complex, brilliant, and often tormented life in our own time? In your moments of solitude or struggle, do you find the courage to question and create as he did? Do you think history has judged this man fairly, balancing his genius against his flaws? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Which chapter of his story moved you most deeply? The lonely childhood, the plague year breakthroughs, or the hard-won triumphs? The universe continues to whisper its secrets. The next apple may fall for any of us. Keep watching the world with curious eyes, Keep asking the difficult questions. Keep reaching for understanding. The cosmos rewards those who dare to wonder.